So, hey guys, today we're going to be talking about power creep. We've kind of talked about this specific kind of like power creep before, but it's been a while, so might as well see what's new. But first, we gotta start with the old stuff, I guess. So, the kind of power creep we're talking about today is specifically, well, the amount of effects that cards have. So, if we go back in time, I guess we'll say, I don't know, we have Pot of Greed, Graceful Charity, and all of that stuff, right? So, agreed. You draw two cards. Graceful Charity, you're going to be drawing three cards, then discarding two cards if we search like Ring of Destruction, Raigeki, right? There's a lot of text on these cards, right? But essentially, they only do one thing. So with Ring of Destruction, we can simplify it to destroy one monster. It has to be one that your opponent controls, I guess. But yeah, you destroy one monster, and then both players take the attack value as burn damage. That's the simplification. But yeah, for the most part, one effect. If we go to like Raigeki, destroy all monsters your opponent controls, right? So yeah, I mean, pretty simple and not that much to it. We go a little bit further, and we'll have Thunder Dragons, right? And with Thunder Dragons, these cards now have like two effects. So if we go to Thunder Dragon Dark, we have quick effect, you can discard this card, add one Thunder Dragon Dark from your deck to your hand. And then we have if this card is banished or sent from the field to the graveyard, you can add one Thunder Dragon card from your deck to your hand, except for Thunder Dragon Dark. But however, you can only use one Thunder Dragon Dark effect per turn and only once that turn. Even though you still technically need like a whole dead-ass another card to trigger Thunder Dragon Dark, because even if we do this effect, we don't have anything that triggers this. So this would require some other card, so it's like a 2-card combo to trigger Thunder Dragon Dark in like most cases, or if you had something to trigger the Thunder Dragon Dark in your hand. So notably for this, I don't remember the name of the card exactly, but it's like some wolf guy that banishes one card from your hand and then one card in your deck with the same type, I believe. What was it called again? Lupine, right. So this guy. And also worth mentioning, I guess, is that this card, I guess, you can activate both effects here because it does have two effects, but this effect is going to require battle, or it's going to be destroyed by opponent's card effect, which requires it to be like turn 2 to activate. So if you were going second with this, it would take till turn 3 to be able to trigger this effect over here, for the most part. And it just adds one of your banished monsters to your hand. It's kind of a whatever effect, honestly. So, yeah. What we're at now, it's for the most part, it's going to be 2 effects, and it's kind of middling quality right now because, you know, we can only utilize one of our 2 effects per turn, right? So we're going to go a bit more into the future, and we'll do Tri-Brigade, I guess, right? So Tri-Brigade, for the most part, has 2 effects on most of their monsters. The one that has closest to the effects is absolutely no one. There isn't a single card, right? Yeah, Karis special summons itself, and then it has the banish effect. Actually, it's just Fractal, right? Wasn't it Fractal? Does Fractal have any other effects? Nope. Does it? No, it's just the 2 effects, right? Unless it does something else. Hold. Please special summon one beast warrior or winged beast link monster from your extra deck with link rating equal to the number banished. Also, you can only use the rest of this turn. Okay, yeah. It's the banished guys from graveyard to perform link summon thing, right? That's all there is on these guys. I thought there was one of these guys that did something else. I guess not. Yeah. So these guys basically have the banish to special summon a guy from the extra deck, like cheating a guy out from the extra deck kind of effect. And then you have one other effect of some other variety. So for Fractal, this would be the send itself from your hand plus a level 3 or lower Beast Warrior or Winged Beast monster from your deck to the graveyard. And then we have Tribe Brigade Kit, which is, I believe, Foolish Burial. And then Nerval allows you to add any Tribe Brigade, I believe. Yeah, any Tribe Brigade monster. And then with the Link monsters, well, you have some effect. And then I think it was probably Beerber when I was thinking, right? Discard 2 cards and target one of your banished level 4 or lower Beast Warrior, Winged Beast monster special summon it. I thought for some reason Fractal had that effect, so I guess it doesn't, it's just Beerber's effect, right? And then for the Link monsters, for the most part, they have some graveyard trigger effect, where when they're sent to the graveyard, they'll do a thing. For the cards that specifically add a card from your deck to your hand, you don't fully get the advantage out of it because you have the place one card from your hand on the bottom of the deck effect here. So in cases where, let's say, we need to put back, like, I don't know, so assuming we have some hand traps, we would need to put back, I guess, like Fractal, which would be really good follow-up on the next turn, hit, Nerval, whatever we have in our hand, basically. And we just have a full end board, and if we want like a starter, we'll for the most part have to top deck it, or we'll have to add it off of the Tribe Brigade Revolt, because that's going to resummon like Nerval and Kit to trigger them again, to maybe perform a search, maybe Farigate to like mulligan again. Like, it's a really small mulligan, but you know, whatever. And if we want to search Revolt, we'll have to put back like a card for it, basically, and Farigate effect as well also puts back a card, but you draw one card, so that one goes even. But yeah, we're not building an insane amount of advantage here. But then if you go a bit further, I'm not exactly sure when this happens, but with like Malice and Ryzeal, it's kind of noticeable because of how you're getting free draws. So with Ryzeal, you have the field spell just giving you a free draw, recycling some stuff in your graveyard. You have Ugaris as well. If you make that, you're drawing 2, discarding 1. And that card's going to be like a completely useless card. And you already drew 1 card. So either way, you're going at least +2. Either way you consider it, right? So it's either +2 or +3. And then Malice triggers like how many times? It's actually like ridiculous, right? For Malice, you have Chessy Cat, right? So this completely free to activate, honestly, with how this works. So you draw 2 cards, you draw 1 off of White Binder on turn 1, and then on the following turn, you trigger White Binder effect to draw, but again, giving you overall 4 draws. And this is if you go first, right? So it's like an insane amount of free advantage. At this point, you've generated yourself a second hand because your starting cards, you have 5 cards in hand, and off of like a 1-card combo, you've drawn on a deck an additional like 4. And sometimes you put cards back as well, so you could have a March Hare in hand additionally, like after resolving your combo. So, I mean, in theory, this could put you up to either like 9 or 10 cards in hand on the second turn, or the equivalent of that. Of course, like there's a hand size limit, so you can set some back row cards, and that like puts you at just a ridiculous amount of interruptions, and also like hand trap, back row, whatever, right? But yeah, going back to Tribe Brigade, the amount difference between this and Thunder Dragon, it's actually, there is obviously a difference, right? But it's actually still not that insane. But this is probably the start of like around, well, not with like Tribe Brigade, but like this is one of the decks that would be able to like moderately do modern combo, right? So the thing about Thunder Dragon would be that the combos are still kind of I would consider like slower with this type of card, right? For a variety of reasons. And then there's also like consistency aspects, but not focusing on that too much. If we activate a card, right, it'll lead us into activating a different card essentially. And we can kind of just do some basic maths here, right? So if I activate one effect to put our own monster onto the field, right, that's going to be not much going to be happening here, right? If we activate one effect on this monster, that'll grab us another monster, okay? And then that monster is going to summon itself. So we'll go 1, 2 here. And that'll be considering like, so that this is the on summon, and then this would be the actual effect being activated, right? And then after this, the amount of effects you can activate, it's going to be just the one card you like added or got yourself access to essentially. And then that card is going to activate, and then if it activates its second effect, it's just doing the same thing over and over again, right? Where until you, for the most part, finish your combo or you run out of card effects to kind of activate, you're just going kind of like 1, 2 here, 1, 2, 1, 2, you know? So special summon a card, and then that card's going to do something like Foolish Burial a card, and then that card's going to activate to special summon something or set up the special summon of something. And we also have like roto effects and whatnot. But whatever the first effect is, generally it's going to be like setting up something. Or no, it's going to be like setting up the summon of something or straight up summoning something, and then 2 is usually going to be the setup, right? And if we overall look at the effects this way, there's going to be still a pretty sizey amount of cards you're going to activate, but there's actually a limitation on this. So if we were to throw in like just all of our Tri Brigade cards here real quick into the main deck, we only have actually 1, 2, 3, 4 Tri Brigade cards here. So at most, we're only able to activate like 8 effects. And of course, we do go into some extra deck cards as well. So it'll usually just be these 2. So if we activate every single Tri Brigade effect here, this is going to be this is 8 effects, right? Or yeah. And then activate these 2. That puts us at 12 effects, which kind of seems like a lot. I mean, in some circumstances, well, this is Tri Brigade Pier, so that there's more considerations, but it's just 12 effects, and depending on the exact deck, right, there's only so many cards you can activate and so much you can do, limited by like how it's kind of designed, how many things you can actually do, because one thing leads into other thing, and then that thing leads into other thing, so it's like borderline a straight line where you're just going through all the different cards, you know, and activating all of their effects. And yeah, I mean, it's not that bad still. But if we go back to like really old combos, you're not able to really do this kind of setup because we don't have card special summon itself and then set up something. We have essentially the card either special summons itself, which doesn't really set up anything, and then we have just some setup kind of effect. So BLS technically, Black Luster Soldier. So this would technically be considered a combo, like in I guess Goat or something. So we have Black Luster Soldier, Envoy of the Beginning. If we had, I don't know, like some card that did a Foolish Burial type effect. So we'll say, I don't know. What has a Foolish Burial type effect that's legitimately just Foolish Burial? Can't really think of one right now, honestly. But yeah, I guess we'll just go with Magical Breaker. So let's say you summon Magical Breaker, okay? Or Breaker the Magical Warrior. And then we Foolish Burial another card. And we'll Foolish Burial, I guess, in this case, a light monster of some sort. Then that sets up Blackluster Soldier Envoy of the Beginning to be special summoned whenever the breaker gets sent to the graveyard, which we don't really have much control over, nor a good way to like really force this. So we can crash it, our opponent can destroy by battle, whatever, and then we just summon the Blackluster Soldier Envoy of the Beginning. Overall, this process will take at least till turn 3 to be able to summon this single monster. And we need to like card open essentially 3 cards in hand to kind of do this. I suppose instead of like Foolish Burial, we can have like a regular Thunder Dragon. And this will just be able to kind of cycle some cards, right? And we'll still have the same like hand card count. So this would be a little bit better, I guess. But yeah, I mean, really slow combo. And even if you have this set up, like you might not drop the BLS immediately. You might only use it in like the lethal push because, you know, like Raigeki is a card that exists, or maybe Torrential, Book of Moon, whatever. And you might want to clear the back row first and then use this to push for lethal or something, which is like a thing. Then we're going to move along now a little bit further. So if we go to Tearlament, Tearlament has cards that are going to start to have like 3 effects on them. So if we go to Perlerino, this has individually 3 different effects. So it's like this Rhoda effect, this attack gain effect for whatever reason, and then it has the destroy effect. But the thing about Perlerino is I guess you can only... Nope, nothing actually. You can use this effect of Perlerino once per turn, so yeah, you can activate all 3 of these effects on the same turn pretty much, right? Well, I mean, this one's like a continuous effect, so the activation thing kind of makes at least this effect a hard once per turn, because technically this is not hard once per turn, which is kind of funny. But yeah, I guess that one doesn't matter that much. So next thing, we have Rukalos, we have 3 effects. Other aqua monsters you control cannot be destroyed by battle. And then we have 2 different effects, special summon itself if this was fusion summoned, and then the negate special summon effect. If we go to Reinhardt, this actually has 2 effects, so it's the special summon itself back, and then the Foolish Burial effect. If we go to Tear Cache, this has 3 different effects. So the Mill 2, Mill 3, and then special summon itself. If we go progressing, like we have Havness, so basically most of the cards here, they're going to activate like 2 or 3 times. So Kikelos has distinctly 3 effects as well. So it's like Rhoda or Foolish Burial, and then it has Monster Reborn, and then it has Mill 5. Shirin has, well, this is technically all 1 effect, but special summon itself, Mill 3, and then perform fusion summon. But yeah, in general, all of these cards just have more and more effects, right? So now, if we have, like, we're going to add in the exact same amount of cards that we had with just the Tri-Brigade cards, right? So that would be, I believe it was like 4 different main deck cards. So we'll go with Tear Cache, and then we'll go with, I guess, Merlin, probably. Sure. So we'll take away Perlerino. And how many effects are we now activating with these cards and our extra deck cards here? So technically we also have access to more extra deck, but we're going to put in like just the same amount for now, right? So we activate the effect to special summon itself, or in this case with Rhino we can just normal summon it, whatever the case. That'll trigger 1 effect, and then Rhino Heart is going to mill, okay? And then that mill is going to set up another special summon. So we can send to either of these basically, and then that will now go ahead and go into the Kikelos, right? And then the Kikelos is going to activate an effect, and this is going to be Foolish Burial or Add to Hand. We'll probably do sending Tear Cache, and then that's going to activate the tier cache. So that's going to be effect number 2 here, I guess. And then we have the effect to Monster Reborn here. So that'll be effect number 3. And then this actually also triggers tier cache, so effect number like 4. And then this actually triggers the mill effect, so that's effect number 5. And then this, what was this chain again? Okay, this is, let's review this real quick. Foolish Burial effect. This one is mill. Monster Reborn, mill, mill, and then from here we can trigger another fusion, so that'll go into Tearlament like Rukalos. So that puts us at like 6 effects. And then when we do inevitably activate Rukalos, so because this is a little bit different, because this isn't like the extension type stuff that Tri-Brigade has, like with their extra deck monsters, we're going to be activating like Rukalos's effects basically after this. And then there's also like the kind of passive effect it has. And in some cases we can also like start Merly and then grab like Rhino later, kind of. It's kind of like a bit convoluted and stuff, but you know, this doesn't account for like the millers that are in the deck as well as the other extra deck monsters that we will have access to do things with later. But yeah, overall we're activating more effects. So in general, if every single card had 3 effects, then with Red Brigade we had 12 effects. With Tearlament, we actually now would have 18 effects. Now, what the difference between these effects are that there's actually a significant amount in what you're able to do, because there's going to be more limitations with what you can do with 2 effects versus 3 effects in general, right? Like how with only 1 effect before, we needed multiple turns to do something simple, right? So something that would have been more difficult is going to be easier to do with more effects, assuming we're running some similar effects. Like if we wrote 2 cards or something like that, right? We're going to be able to then special summon both of those cards, and then if those cards wrote an additional 2 cards, then you know it's going to be a completely insane combo. I mean, it's like obvious, but you don't really need to think about these things most of the time, I guess. So yeah, I mean, the effects, they don't like fully scale like linearly, I guess, right? I would say it's kind of exponential in a sense. And then there's like also stuff to consider, like quality of negates and whatnot, and quality of the effects that are being activated. But just worth mentioning, I guess, is like when I would activate Foolish Burial or Thunder Dragon before, Thunder Dragon Dark even, that's only sending 1 card to the graveyard. Like Kick Kalos, when you get to this point, it's actually Foolish Burialing, well, not Foolish Burialing, it's milling 10 cards. Which you might think, oh, that's 1/4 of your deck, and that's actually incorrect, because after you resolve like Kick Kalos and Tier Cache, you have to consider as well, oh wait, you started with hand cards, so it's actually closer to 1/3 of your deck, I believe, rather than 1/4, because there's also ideas of like, what if I actually started Perlorino and then I actually added Rhino Heart to my hand with Perlorino, then this would put me at 34 cards after resolving Perlorino and such, right? And there are also the other millers as well. So the amount of cards you're milling could be over half your deck, and depending on like, because you don't actually need to just only play with Tearlament cards. So if we were to be playing, we'll just say Punk, right? Punk goes through and pulls a decent amount. It's not like an insane amount, but just by doing the regular punk combo, like you wouldn't have to be doing anything special. That would get you a bunch of cards, and you would just kind of like search a bunch of cards for the combo, and that would lower your deck count further. So you could be legitimately milling nearly your whole deck in that way, because of simply how many cards you're going through. But yeah, with more and more card effects, we're just able to do a lot more, and that well kind of makes going second suck to some extent as well. There's like a lot to it, I suppose. So this is just where we left off last time, I believe, with like Tearlament, right? So we activate a bunch of different effects, and yeah, I mean, the more effects you activate, we can just expect the extra deck, or not extra deck, the end board to be just that much stronger, right? And it'll kind of partially scale to card effects kind of activated. Also worth mentioning, of course, is this hasn't even considered the fact that Tearlament actually starts to play on your turn as well. So remember all the cards that we just resolved here? Like, well, instead of Merly, it'd probably be like a Havness or something. But yeah, I mean, these also aren't all of the Tearlament cards, also worth mentioning, I suppose. But all of these cards are going to pretty much just activate again on the next turn. So Kalos, we can make this again, and it can mill again, and it can Foolish Burial again. It won't activate this effect, but we're activating most of these effects again. So just, you know, for sake of simple math here, we'll just 2x the effects here and say, boom. We're actually dropping overall like 36 effects. You know, that kind of vibe with tier, you know? With the engine, because we'll be activating it again. So yeah, that's kind of disgusting, yeah? But you know, Tearlament is quote unquote the best deck right now, so like it's hella banned or hella like hit, so it can't do this right now. But if it were full power, this is what it'd be doing. Yeah. If we now go to Cool Tune, how much does Cool Tune actually do in comparison? So we have one effect here, so this is technically an effect, right? The effect to use one tuner in hand. This is like technically also a summon condition, or primarily a summon condition, and maybe you could say it's not an effect, but I mean it's practically an effect, so we'll count it. And then we have this effect to summon itself. Then we have graveyard effect. So basically the basic rundown on a Cool Tune is every single one of these main deck monsters has a graveyard effect. This effect to use a tuner in hand as material, so that's 2 effects, and then it has some on-field effect or some other third type of effect. Like with Rotary, it's the normal summon effect. With Q, this is special summon a card. With Rico, this is going to be another card trigger type deal, right? So with Cool Tune, we're triggering in the same kind of way or worse, because these cards have 3 effects each, right? Unlike Tearlament, where they had, honestly, it's like 50-50 on most of the cards, where they either had, well, they either have 3 effects or 2 effects, and it was like maybe a 50-50 split between a good amount of the cards. It's not like every card, but you know, not all of their cards had 3 effects. Cool Tune literally does have 3 effects on all of their cards, so without even going into the extra deck, if we just mess around with some of these guys, then, you know, if we just activate all of their essentially 3 effects, that puts us to 12. So with the Tri-Brigade cards, we would have activated, in this case, it would be every single main deck monster, and then all of our extra deck monsters just to match these 4, essentially, right? And technically, you still have cards like JJ Cooltoon, Cooltoon Synchro, and some other stuff that you're also activating. So if we actually throw these in, you're activating already close to like what Tearlament would be activating. And then of course, we do have that Tearlament aspect of activating our cards on our opponent's turn like a lot. So we have Q effect and like whatever, right? These have graveyard effects, so they can trigger to do things on our opponent's turn as well. Basically, right? So yeah, I mean, with the amount of effects on this, we'll just go through it real quick. So we'll only focus on the combo for the time being. But yeah, you activate Track Maker, and the combo for this actually isn't like too insane, but if we just scale the effects, because now they're not all like how Tearlament was, where the majority of the Tearlament effects were actually all kind of more like combo centric, right? So with Cooltoon Track Maker and all of these Cooltoon monsters, the balance for this is a little bit different, right? Or different, the deck balance. So with Tearlament, every single one of the Tearlament cards, all of their effects, with the exception of like, I guess, two of the effects on Perlarino, and then like Rukelos, I guess, all of their main deck monsters, every single one of their three effects were all to go deeper into the combo, right? So with Sheeran, special summon itself, mill 3, fusion summon, all of these, every single one of these effects is essentially just pushing combo, or just all like purely combo focused. With this effect here, or not this one, this effect here, if this card is sent to the graveyard, you can target one monster your opponent controls, destroy it. This effect here is just interruption stuff. So if you're going second, you'll be able to activate this, and it'll be like you'll be able to actually activate three effects with this in theory, kinda, right? Or on the next turn, you'll be able to then activate this effect whenever you use this as synchro material. So this is going to be different in the sense of how you're pushing and how you're utilizing your three effects. So with Tearlament, it's a lot more combo heavy. With Cooltoon, 1/3 of their cards are going to pretty much have interruption, or no, 1/3 of their effects are going to be tied to interruption, which is going to be sort of a difference in some aspects. So if we look at Cooltoon, it actually has the same amount of I guess actual, like, for engine kind of combo stuff, it has the same as like Tri Brigade, where because 1/3 of the effects on your cards are going to be like tied to affecting your opponent's cards and not your own cards. Whenever you're doing your combo, it's actually going to be a similar activation count to Tri Brigade and not to Tearlament, which is kind of interesting, but also it's just going to be much more powerful than Tri Brigade, because you still have 6 additional effects on top of like Tri Brigade, so you have like an additional 30% versus like Tri Brigade's effects, which is actually a whole lot, to be honest. It's just a lot of things going on. And then there's technically, if we look at this, right, this only has, no wait, this still has 3 effects. All right, never mind. So we have that synchro effect to use a tuner in hand. We have the Rhoda effect, the bounce effect. So even the extra deck monsters, I believe, all have 3 effects for whatever reason, right? 1, 2, 3, yep. So the thing about this, I guess, is that not all of the effects are going to strictly go into combo. So it doesn't make as disgusting endboards to an extent as like Tearlament with how this deck works. but just in just sheer numbers. If you were playing a different deck aside from Cool Tune, right? Not every deck is at the point where it's like every card has 3 effects. So if we go to Centurion, how many effects do these cards have? So this effect, it's not actually a super relevant effect, not as much as like the Cool Tune cards, but it does kind of have 3 effects here. So with Primera, you have, while this card is a continuous trap, level 5 or higher Centurion monsters you control cannot be destroyed by card effects. But yeah, for the most part, it's just Rhoda type effect where you search a card. Then we have Special Summon itself, kind of, I guess. And then with Trudea, this genuinely only has 2 effects, right? So that would be place this card in its back row plus Centurion monster for your deck. And then we have Special Summon itself. And then with Stand Up Centurion, it has the effect that protects itself, but that's not actually pushing or like interruption. It's not super important, honestly. During your main phase, if this card was activated this turn, you can send 1 card from your hand to the graveyard. Place 1 Centurion monster from your deck in your spell and trap zone as a face-up continuous trap. And then, if a monster is special summoned, you can immediately, after this effect resolves, synchro summon a synchro monster using monsters you control as material, including a Centurion monster. So the synchro summon effect and the place 1 card from deck effect. So you can just consider this as more or less special summon a monster from the deck, kind of, or a Rhoda, whatever. It's effectively very similar, anyways. And then when we go to Auxilla, this just searches 1 card, and then is place a card during your end phase, and that card's not going to be activatable. So in terms of effects, like despite having 3 effects on some of the cards here, they function closer to like the Tri-Brigade cards activating 2 effects with how this combo works. So if I have straight up 12 effects and my opponent has 18 effects, you can kind of see how there's going to be like some level of disparity, right? So the complicated thing now is that with Cool Tune, technically not all of the effects are actually going to be like engine activation stuff, like with Centurion, where almost all of my stuff is going to be setting up my engine to then set up into interruption. I don't have like going second of power with these cards in the same way Cool Tune does. Because now with Cool Tune, you're going second ability because of all these like 6 additional effects. You're just going to have an advantage straight up over my deck because I don't have as many like effects as you do. Worth mentioning is that this card effect is actually only realistically usable going first. The stand-up Centurion effect actually, this one is moderately relevant, but it only allows you to kind of resolve this Rhoda effect. So let's assume our opponent had a destroy effect that just destroyed a card, right? So assuming this protection is active, I can just destroy a Centurion back row instead. And by back row, I mean back row monster. So let's say stand up Centurion activates, you place Trudea in the back row. Try to special summon Trudea. I could even allow this. And then on the next effect, I could destroy it, or on the previous. So either when this is a monster or a spell trap, but before it's activated the effect, or during the window when it's attempting to activate its effect to place itself back into the back row alongside another card. So yeah, there's this aspect. And then also with Tearlament specifically, if we have Tearlament, then you also have more ability to play going second. Like, even if we disregard all the stuff like Orange of Herald Light, with the Tearlament stuff, simply because we're activating more effects. So in this case, we have the graveyard effects, right? So with like Sheeran, we have activate Sheeran hand effect. And then if that doesn't resolve, then we can still activate the graveyard effect later. And that'll go into other cards. Or like kind of same deal with like Rhino Heart. where it also has the graveyard effect, which is going to trigger something in hand, whatever we send, right, for that effect. So that could be Soliic to add us another card, like maybe Tear Cash to even further extend. So we're able to kind of brute force over our opponent's interruptions purely over like because we have so many card activations for them to kind of stop. Like, that's kind of just power creep really showing, I guess. In terms of power creep, though, like Cool Tune, it's actually not that insanely crazy right now, considering it's actually still. I mean, right now it's coming close to Tearlament in terms of like just card activations, but in terms of all of the quality that Tearlament has, like for example, the turn 0 plays has way more turn 0 plays. Cool Tune actually is still, I'd say, like a lot worse than Tearlament. So with you're going second turn 0 kind of plays, you only have Clip, and Clip isn't even a 1-card combo, it's like a 2-card combo, which I don't even think it can set up like a really good interruption at all with Clip. I think you're just trying to trigger one of the hand card effects or the synchro effects, so like mix effect to destroy a monster your opponent controls or something. That's probably all you can really manage. I'm thinking with Cool Tune, it'd be like pretty doubtful that you can go a lot further. I think, right? You do have Crackle, right? What's this do? Let's see. No way, it's not Crackle, right? Is it Loudness War? No, you can't really make Loudness War, right? Yeah. Remix. Choose 2 non-synchro tuners in graveyard. This effect's not like actually that good either, because you already used the effects. So yeah, I don't think you can actually really make anything aside from a Cool Tune RS. That'd be like kind of good, except that's still 1 interruption because of the levels, right? Flip requires a level 3, so if you send Rekko, this is a Spell Trap pop, which is meh, and you actually have to use that too, right? Because this requires specifically Rekko to make. So Clip is actually going to only be able to ever, I think, make output like 1 interruption. I don't really see you doing much more with Clip. So yeah. And then meanwhile, when we have Herald of Orange Light pitching like a Miller or Shuffler, then you have the Shuffler interruption as well, and then the Miller can just straight up allow you to make Rukelos and then mill even more, giving you access to more Shufflers, right? Spelled Rukelos wrong again, but whatever. And this can technically also be used on the next turn as well, with how this works. But yeah. Right now, we still haven't achieved every single like, or the majority of our decks being close to Tearlament level. Not sure how like much we're going to approach Tearlament level, but yeah, I mean, Cool Tune, you can say at the moment it's the strongest deck. Like if you were to say something like that, I mean, a lot of people might agree, but you gotta realize at this point it's still probably worse than Tearlament. Crazily enough to say, right? Despite giving this deck all these effects, it's still worse than Tier. Like, damn. Main thing though that usually sucks, like that this hasn't really changed since Tier. It's just like we only have one kind of meta deck where it's like, you know, there's just this deck that's a lot different from like all the other decks available because it's just stuffed with a stupid amount of effects or whatever, right? Tearlament had nothing close to it. I mean, with Malice Ryziel, you could consider, oh, wait, this is a good format now because there's like decks that are around the same power level, except not really because it was only Malice and Ryziel. And then that also additionally sucked because they were both weak to completely different hand traps, making it like just obnoxious to play this format. So like, oh, I dropped Lancia, but my opponent is playing Ryziel. That deck does not banish a single card in any context. Even if I was playing like Mitsurugi Ryziel, there's still not a single card that gets banished at any point in time. Well, crap. And then there's like Droll and Lockbird versus Melis, and then it's like, oh, the only two cards that are going to, for the most part, add a card. It was like, White Binder draw, and then you have Chessy Cat effect to draw. And the draw is optional on this. And I think that was the only search or add or drollable effect in this deck. So we're drolling an upstart, basically. Yeah, we sure are, I guess, with droll epic. And then versus Ryziel, deck feels completely dead, can't really make anything, can't really do anything. I got that vibe going. Best thing you might be able to do, detonator pass. So yeah, it's like a 2 activation detonator, I think, that they end up passing on. Versus Melis, which completely ignores the droll. So hand trap, flippy floppy, where you either completely prevent your opponent from playing, or it does absolutely nothing at all, and there is no in between. And that aspect actually applies to Cool Tune as well. Like normal summon Q, Ash this didn't matter, they still had something else, and then your Ash did nothing, and then there was also no point where you could have Ash except for the start. So you know, that sucks, I guess, just in general. But where does this leave us exactly? Well, I don't really have too much of an opinion on this, honestly, but it's just like in general. If we have only like 1 or 2 archetypes of the same parallel, it's not going to be that fun because there are players that are going to be playing in disadvantage if they're not playing those exact decks. And playing in disadvantage, I mean, that just puts you in disadvantage, right? So if you were playing in with like a more competitive mindset or trying to play, I guess, a little bit more competitively, then let's assume you just like Centurion, right? But now you just can't play Centurion because in this case, we'll say Cool Tune is going to just outclass your deck just inherently, like without even considering exactly what the deck does. You're allowed to activate more cards, and also you have more effects to activate in most situations. So you have some like flexibility, better going second ability, turn 0 plays, yada yada yada, right? But all we're allowed to do with Centurion is a bit of combo versus the board breaking card effects we have tied to these cards, all the extender starters, whatever. And we're just clearly going to be outclassed in all those regards without even considering things like matchup. We're already in sort of disadvantage. So yeah, I mean, power creep isn't that bad per se, because we are able to somewhat do more, but there are like downsides with all of these effect activations. It just takes more time to resolve like turns and whatnot, and then that affects time. And then like apparently it's been a big struggle with like time rules and time in real life tournaments, and also like in Master Duel, turns could end up taking longer with more effects being required to like activate to do the combos, and taking longer to end your turn and all that to finish like making your board. All of that kind of slowly adds up over time, you know? So just plainly adding more card effects onto cards, I mean, could be a good thing, could be a bad thing, depends on perspective, but right now all I want is like my decks to be like playable with other decks. That's all I really want with like any deck at this point in time. So yeah, that's all I got for you guys today, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.